So the question of the day, the question of the morning is, what do you stand for? What is going on in the world that you're unhappy about, that frustrates you, that you keep thinking about? And the most important question is, what are you doing about it? Are you complaining or are you taking action? Because we can all complain. Not that any of you do, I'm just saying. Here's the deal. If you, for some reason, think there's nothing you can do, you are absolutely wrong. And you won't hear me say that very often. Because you can do something. Everybody can do something. If you're passionate about something, you might be surprised at just how much difference you can make. Our personal challenge is to find our place, our contribution to the world, where we are all interdependent, where we are linked, and where we are jointly responsible for our common future. I know that's the truth. You might recall what Margaret Mead said. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Because indeed, that's the only thing that ever has. And we know that is the truth as well. And it only takes one person, really, to get things started, to get things moving. A couple examples. Think about Rosa Parks. One woman said, "Oh, I don't think so," right? She refused that bus driver. She refused to give up her seat to a white person because she was black. She'd had enough. You gotta love that. And that really was the beginning of the modern civil rights movement. She made a huge impact. She became a national, international icon, denouncing racial segregation. It started with one person who was brave enough to be out loud, to stand up for something. Do you know who Cindy Leitner is? I really didn't know that name. A few of you might. Her 13-year-old daughter was killed by a repeat DUI driver years ago. And she founded Mothers Against Drunk Drivers in 1980. And you know what? She started that in her home. And look at it now. Do you know that before this organization, MAD, there were little or no legal consequences for driving while intoxicated? Isn't that amazing to think back? Her organization transformed American attitudes about drunk driving and successfully fought for stricter laws across the country. Started with one person in her home, and look at the impact that has had. Those are just a few examples of what everyday people can do, changes that affect our country, and in a lot of cases, the absolute whole, the world. They were seen as troublemakers. They were seen as, why can't they just leave things the way they are? And thank God they didn't, right? We are a better humanity for both of these women. Have any of you watched or have been watching Leah Remini's documentary on Scientology? It's very interesting. I have been watching that, I have to tell you. I love her mission. Her mission is to change, to make change by informing people and talking about her experiences and talking about other people's experiences. What I have found fascinating is a lot of other people have come forward to share their experiences. Her mission, her goal, is standing up for families, standing up for children, standing up for the right to be free if that's what you choose, right? Because it's always a choice. There are so many people supporting her now and supporting her mission that it seems as though there's going to be a great change there too. It takes one person to open their mouth. It takes one person to stand up. And you also can get involved in something to help make a major change. You absolutely can. It's about your passion. It's about what is it that just irks you? What is it that you want to do something about? Stand up for what you believe in, for what you want to see happen in the world, for the changes that you'd like to see occur. You don't want to be that person that's condemning and judging others for not doing enough or not doing it right. I'm sure at some point we've all done that. It's our turn to step up. Here's the thing. If we all start judging the other, and then we find ourselves that everything is a battle to be won, how does anyone really ever win that? They don't. And even if we did win, how could that be loving, kind, and compassion? How can that be the world that we want to experience? As the dust begins to settle, as the dust begins to settle following the recent election, emotions are continuing to run high. I don't know about you, but I've seen some anger, frustration, animosity even. It's tempting for us as human beings to make those who see things differently as the other. And sometimes we even self-righteously see our own intellect and our own reasoning skills as being right, or even, in some cases, superior. And in that climate, there appears to be a great deal of being less for something and more against something. And unfortunately, that kind of attitude deteriorates into divisive behavior, into unkind attitudes. Where's the compassion in that? We are called to be who we are. And who are we? We are children of God, children of life, of source, of pure love. That line of thinking builds a wider split in a world that's in desperate need of unity, of peace and understanding. Wouldn't you agree? That's what we need. And yet we find ourselves being divisive. I'm not saying that we have to like everything that's going on. Have we ever liked everything in a political climate? Probably not. We pick and we choose. What I am saying, though, is instead of complaining about what we don't like, let's stand up for what we do like, for what we want to see in the world and how we want things to unfold in our lives. The challenge is turning from that unwanted condition to focusing our energy on what it is we do want, what we want to be for. And first and foremost, we need to acknowledge that the condition exists, that it's there. Not give it energy, not grow it, just simply be aware of it. And from that awareness is where we can consciously choose a higher direction. Now, I'm really glad you asked how we choose that higher direction, because I have something to say to that. We can visualize, we can speak out loud about a possible future. We can express our desires for what it is we do want and how we want our life to show up. We can seek opportunities to reinforce working together, honor our differences, focus on our commonalities. We can look for ways to turn civil discourse away from negativity toward respect and dignity and common bonds. Anytime we resist something, we cause it to grow and to fester. We all know that. That's the basic law of attraction. A Zen master back in the late 500s said this. So this isn't new, by the way. He said, if you want the truth to stand clear before you, never be for or against. The struggle between for and against is the mind's worst disease. It clouds us. I studied religious science for probably 10, 15 years. And I read a lot of Ernest Holmes and a lot of Emerson. And this one particular piece that Ernest Holmes, actually he didn't write it, he said it at a convention. It's kind of the same context as the Zen master. And he said this: find me one person who is something for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of the soul, and I will find another Savior, another Jesus, an exalted human being. He was really speaking there about the power of the law of attraction when it's used in the direction of good for all, not one or the other, for all. When we focus on what we're for, and we can eliminate the need to make other people wrong in that process, and we can truly perform miracles. We can. He went on to say this: find me one person who no longer has any fear of the universe or of God or of man or of anything else, and you have brought to me someone in whose presence we may sit, and fear shall vanish as clouds before the sunlight. Find me someone who has given all that he has in love, and I will have found the lover of my soul, because he will have revealed to me the nature of God and proved to me the possibility of all human souls. Because if one can, everyone can. We are all from the same stuff. We are all from that same source. We all have the same abilities. All we need to do is get in touch with our inner self, our inner being. And as we return to that very source of our being and fearlessly be before what we want to see, we can then let go of the other junk. We don't have to hang on to it. So look toward God, life source, for direction, for answers, for how can I serve? How can I be? How can I make that change that I want to see in the world? Awaken that dormant energy within you. Our outer energy is simply the physical part of being human. As we turn inward, as we experience that spiritual awakening, we make our God-self connection. When we go beyond human labels into that inner awareness, we're very clear at that point what we're not. And you know what that leads us to? That leads us to help us recognize who we truly are. That essence, that source, that God source, that spiritual being having this human experience. Eckhart Tolle reminds us in all of his writings about labels and who we're not. You're not your name. It was given to you to distinguish your body from other bodies, to give others a word to use when they're trying to get your attention or they're referring to you. That's all a name is. You are not your body. You are the possessor of the body. You're that invisible source behind it. You are not, however, that physical body. Nor are you your mind. You think thoughts with your mind. Therefore, the thoughts are there, and you are the thinker of those thoughts. But you are not those thoughts. You're not your occupation. That role identification inhibits us as human beings because it keeps us away from our true self, our higher self. We get caught up in that because it tends to be a dormant force in our life. That's not who we are. You are not what you do. You are so much more than that. You are not your relationships. You're an individual soul connected to the whole. I mean, really think about that. You are an individual soul connected to the whole. You know, we talk about oneness, we talk about being connected, we talk about being from source. Really spend time with that this week. You are part of that whole, an individual soul connected to the whole. I just really love that idea. And every person in your life is part of that whole as well. Now, every person who enters or exits your life does so in a mutual sharing of life's beautifully divine lessons. Some have longer roles to play. Ultimately, though, we will all return to our source, to the absolute. You are not your country. You are not your religion. You are not your race. You are an eternal spirit. That's who you are. Call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. That's who you truly are. Doesn't matter what body that you showed up in or where you arrived on this planet. Doesn't matter what religion you call yourself. Those are labels. And in the inner spiritual world, they have absolutely no meaning. I invite you to take some time this week to think about what it is you would like to see changed, where you can make a difference, because you can. Maybe it's in the political arena, maybe it's in environmental, maybe it's in social, maybe it's social injustice, maybe it's homelessness, maybe it's human rights. Doesn't matter what it is. Where is your heart calling you? What is it calling you to do? Whatever it is, stand up for it, make a difference, get involved. There's great potential in focusing our energy in the direction that we want to go, rather than pushing against a condition we don't like. The goal is to attain that awareness, to turn our attention away from what we don't want and turn it toward what we do want. Don't let fear or perceived limitation get in your way or stop you or say, I can't do it, I'm not enough. None of those things are true. Be clear about the type of world that you want to live in, that you want to experience. Stand up, support that, get involved. You are not and never have been powerless. You are an incredibly powerful being, each and every single person. The outside world of appearances might attempt to convince us otherwise. Sometimes other people try and convince us otherwise. However, they're coming from their own fear, from their own sense of limitation. And we may have conditioned ourselves to believe that we can't make a difference. And that isn't true. You can make a difference. Each of us has the power to greatly influence ourselves, our families, our friends, our country, and even the world. We can't do that by sitting at home and yelling at the TV, wanting the world to change. Our work is to get involved and share with the world the very best of who we are. When we let go of attitudes and prejudice that we use to separate us from one another, we will find that we are more alike than we are different. Let's get involved. Let's work to change the world into a place that we want to live. That place begins where? Within our own heart, within our own mind, within our own consciousness. So let us remember to embrace the highest and the best that we wish to see in this world, and always remember to be for something and against nothing. Thank you so much for being here this morning while I shared this truth as I understand it.